welcome back to another amazing Attollo Prep Professional Development Series episode. Please join me in welcoming our special guest today. We have Dana Hanchin, who is the President and CEO of HDC MidAtlantic. Woo! So happy you're here.
Glad to be here, Madison. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, so much fun. Okay, I ask the same question every time we bring a guest into our studio, so at least they know the first thing to expect. Where are you from, and what were some of your hobbies growing up?
So I'm originally from Western Pennsylvania, actually born in the Monongahela Valley.
Okay.
Both my grandfathers were steel workers. And so I was raised there up until about the 9th grade, and then we moved out to Ohio, and I did high school in Ohio, and I also did college in Ohio. And then I came out to Philly to do my master's degree.
Yes, I saw Temple was on that.
Temple made.
Go Owls, go Owls. Okay, so before... There's a call. I didn't know there was a specific call for it.
That sounds like an owl. Look it up on the app.
I'm learning this now. Okay, I'll use this. So before we dive more into your educational background, I do want to talk about HDC's work today, just to give all of us a baseline, place to launch into further conversation. So tell me, how can our community better understand the work that you do today? Maybe walk us through what a typical day looks like for you. What's going on with HDC?
So HDC was founded in 1971 by a group of volunteers in Columbia, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So we've been around for a really long time, decades and decades, that were really focused on how to provide affordable housing for seniors in their community, and sort of grew from there. So we focus on seniors, families, people and individuals with disabilities, as well as vulnerable populations.
Gotcha.
We have 65 affordable housing communities across the 3-state footprint.
Wow.
So we started in Lancaster County, but we have grown since then. And so we serve nearly 4,500 residents.
That's
and
a lot.
We have over 3,300 apartments. So when I think about affordable housing today, I mean, I got started in this in 1995, and I've always seen affordable housing as sort of the cornerstone for stability and growth.
Gotcha.
And also recognize it at the time of being in crisis.
Yeah.
Because any time a family or an individual can't find housing stability, it's a crisis, whether it's one person or thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions. And so today we are facing that crisis at an exponential level across the country. So it's not just in Lancaster County or in Pennsylvania where we're seeing a shortage of housing that people can afford, and it's not just about the most vulnerable, right? It's about folks at any spectrum. So you're thinking about folks coming out of college and trying to find an affordable place to live as they start a new job.
Hey,
right?
Yeah.
Working families, right? What does it take to sort of find an affordable apartment on one income or even two incomes? Looking at your parents who may be looking to downsize and saying, I want to downsize, but where can I find something that I can afford? And then seniors, of course, who are aging in place and want to live, they're on fixed incomes and they want to live as independently as long as possible. And so where do they go? So across the spectrum, people are searching for these housing options.
Okay.
And so for us, it's become this critical moment where every day we get over 100 inquiries around affordable housing. So
how many? Oh my gosh.
100 a day, either through email or through phone calls, and people need housing now.
Yeah.
And the last thing, and it's heartbreaking and gut-wrenching, because we can't help them, because we have 7,000 households on our waiting list combined for all of our communities.
Wow.
And it takes anywhere from 18 months to 24 months to find an apartment that becomes available.
Yeah.
And when people call, they need it now. And there's just not a lot of options that are available.
Yeah.
So that is really the struggle that we're facing as a society. But I think for HDC, it makes our sort of commitment to the mission and our purpose even more important.
Seems like a lot of factors that are being involved in this. I mean, that's a very broad list of demographics that are being affected here. Lancaster's a really popular area these days with a lot of people trying to move here, that kind of stuff. What is it that you think in your day-to-day gives you fulfillment and joy of, like, you are making a difference, you're doing this work? Like, tell us a little bit about HDC's day-to-day.
Well, day-to-day always looks different, but we are guided by a 5-year strategic plan. We just released one. It's called our 2030 strategic plan, and it's based on 5 core pillars that we're focused on to make sure that we can become more agile and capable in serving the folks who need affordable housing, especially in this environment where it feels very volatile and there's a lot of uncertainty. And so through that, we look at what we need to focus on year to year in terms of making sure that we're delivering excellent service and we're creating communities of care and connection, and really making sure that the residents that we serve feel a sense of of hope, and they have agency over their lives. So once they find that affordable housing, we want to make sure we provide an opportunity to say whatever you want to achieve in your life, whatever you define as personal success, we want to be able to support you in. So that could mean that they want to, stay at HDC. It could be a senior and they want to stay at HDC's communities for as long as possible, without having, assistance, of living independently. So I think that for us, it's really about making sure that we can, when residents come into HDC, we meet them where they are, and we want to make sure that they have choice, voice, and power over what they want to accomplish in their lives after they have found stable housing.
Amazing. I love that. Agility. That's a great way to describe that. So I did want to circle back to talk about your education. You studied political science at Kent State in Ohio, and then urban studies at Temple. So there's a pretty clear through line I'm seeing for community work there. Tell me, what is it that initially drew you to urban studies, and what did that graduate program open up for you?
So, fun fact, when I first went to Kent State, I was a fashion design major.
Wow. Okay, it's explaining these wonderful pants today.
Thank you.
Loving them.
So fun.
Yeah.
And I guess I would say in high school, I was more of an art punk, sort of a creative, and honestly, really didn't have college like in the horizon. It was not necessarily something that was like in terms of like what I was thinking about what would happen after high school. My family was, I guess when I was really younger, they thought, oh, Dana, you're good with hair. You should be a hairdresser. Oh, you're really good with art. You should do something creative.
Yeah, the external messaging there.
And so, I thought, okay, well, how can I monetize art? Well, I guess I can make clothes and that will make me money. But at the end of the day, I don't think I really had the discipline or the heart in terms of looking at it as from a sort of like an industry. And so after a semester or so sort of in that field, I switched to anthropology just for like about 3 weeks because I really enjoyed understanding culture and people across the world in terms of how they live and what their norms are and what their values are, and just sort of understanding a little bit more about the diversity of people that exist on this planet. And it still didn't feel right to me. And I moved into political science. I have always had an interest in understanding really about how government, and what I believe about government is that is here to support people and sort of organize our society and make sure that we have the supports that we need to thrive. But I don't think I really had confidence in myself because it felt like a really, intellectual thing, right? And I didn't see myself as an intellectual. I saw myself as a creative, and I also didn't really see myself in college, really. It was not necessarily something I focused on in high school at all in terms of what happened after I graduated. It was sort of like, I need to make a decision. Do I work at a gas station or do I go to college? So I picked the public university in my backyard because my sisters were going to OSU, Ohio State, and I didn't want to be with them. Even though it was 60,000 students, still
strong motivator there.
So I went to Kent State. And so studied political science, but I was also on a work study program and worked in a map library, which was super fun. And so that piqued my interest in geography. And in particular, I took an economic geography class that really explored the boom and bust cycles of economies. So I had shared that my grandfathers were steel workers, so I come from a family that worked in the steel industry in Western Pennsylvania. And that industry was losing ground. As we know, industry left, service-based economy took over.
Has had a huge effect on all of Western Pennsylvania in that region.
Well, in the country, right? In terms of how you were able to provide for your families in terms of working class and being a working family. And so with that, I saw within my own family's experience about how that can affect an individual, how it affects families, how it affects communities, how it affects cities. And really began to explore like how economy and the shifts in economy sort of affect not only the physical landscape, but the social landscape that we exist. And so I think when I was doing my undergraduate work, because I wasn't a good student in high school, let's be clear. I mean, my mother and I just had this conversation where she was like, I didn't think you were going to make it out of your junior year, And
the
so
thing every child wants to hear from their parents.
It's totally fine, And so I just, when I went to undergrad, it was the first time that I really got excited about learning.
Oh, I love that.
And so I didn't really apply myself in high school.
Okay.
And when I got to Kent State, something really flipped a switch in terms of establishing what are my own views and thoughts. You know, how do I want to enter the world? How do I want to think about making an impact and learn? And so I got really excited about learning. And I graduated in 3.5 years. So I did it in sort of less time than typical.
Whoop, whoop.
And I went to graduate school because I felt like I wasn't done learning. I just started. Like I just had 3.5 years of learning, where like in high school,
You're okay, what's next?
So I really wanted to focus on sort of that economic geography, urban geography, and was compelled to go to Temple. They actually offered me a full ride, which
congratulations!
Thank you. I mean, I don't think that's the norm anymore. So I was a teaching assistant, and so that sort of impacted my decision to go there. And I also wanted to be close to family. So I had an aunt that lived on the other side of the river in Jersey, and so I lived with her, and I was a nanny to her 2 girls while I went to graduate school.
Wonderful. Safely back in Eagles territory.
That's right. Go Birds.
Go Birds. Cool.
But my mom will tell you I was born in a terrible town. So let's be clear.
Okay. No Pittsburgh allegiance happening from the audience over there.
I had a T-shirt when I was a kid that said 1 for the thumb in '81. So that was when the Steelers had like a 4-year streak. And they were looking for the 5th.
Well, it's looking good for the green nowadays. So we'll move on from that. I want to talk about that graduate program a little bit more. So really high-level academic work typically in a graduate program, but it seems like the interdisciplinary work you're talking about here, guiding you more towards working with the public. Is there a moment where the work in your graduate program maybe stopped feeling so academic and started feeling a little bit more like, yes, this is what I'm meant to do. This is like what I want to be working after I go out. Tell me about that shift from graduate school to work.
So when I was at Temple, and I remember, traveling up North Broad Street and thinking, the city and what I was doing just fit me. I don't know.
Okay.
It was just a feeling that I had that is exactly where I needed to be. And I don't think that the program in urban studies, it was sort of faceted and interdisciplinary, but it was also rooted in field work. So, I did a lot of work in neighborhoods across Philadelphia, understanding sort of how, around commercial corridors or around sort of housing, around urban renewal, and how that shifted and transformed neighborhoods oftentimes for the worse, and how we're recreating them, and then how the people who live there were part of that process or not of that process. So I had an internship with a small community development organization, and then I also had another study with another nonprofit, which I was looking at community engagement in that community development or affordable housing process, and what success looks like when you involve people who are impacted by the change you're trying to create, which is basically, you should be doing that, right? That's what equity is making sure that the people who are impacted by those decisions are part of the process in terms of problem solving and execution.
Love that. Yeah, that very first job out of graduate school was working with Philadelphia's Empowerment Zone program. You were organizing residents, you were organizing businesses, nonprofit organizations as well. A lot of work going on there. Fresh out of graduate school, what was it like to step into that role and be like, I'm taking ownership of this, I'm helping my community actually change? Maybe there was a feeling involved there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was excited.
Yeah.
And I would say, it was very, very dynamic. It was a startup program. It was actually run by the city of Philadelphia. It was a federal program where funding came through the city of Philadelphia.
Okay.
So I was working in a community in eastern North Philadelphia, primarily a Latino community. I think one of the first things for me was about building trust, and building trust is built over small actions, because I didn't live in that community, right? I didn't speak Spanish. I'm not Latina. I'm actually not even from Philadelphia, right? They see me as an outsider because I came from some other place.
Yeah.
And I work for government, and I'm here to help. So there was all these things that basically said, do not trust.
Yeah, red flag, red flag.
And so I just spent time just listening and learning and connecting and really understanding sort of where folks were coming from to build that trust and make sure that what they were sharing and their thoughts about what the needs were and how to solve for them were being carried forward so we can create the plans to execute on them. And they were part of that process. So we had sort of what we called a community trust board that was organized that sort of were decision makers in that process. And so we, as sort of organizers, were working alongside them, never over them, always with them.
Never over them, always with them. I love that. Yeah. Ah, gorgeous. Early in your career, a supervisor told you, Dana, I pay you to manage the chaos. I loved this quote when I was digging around for some things I wanted to chat about today. Tell me a little bit about how that line maybe landed for you when you first heard it. Has it stayed with you? Have you thought about it since? I loved it. I mean, I spent a lot of time reading that, like, Dana, I pay you to manage the chaos.
Yes, it's actually, it was my boss at the Empowerment Zone.
Yes.
And I will tell you a little bit about that job and how I entered it. I mean, how everyone entered it. There was a vacant building off Love Park in the city of Philadelphia. It was about 16 stories, a former insurance building, completely vacant, owned by the city. I was told to report there on my first day of work and go to the 16th floor. So completely
not suspicious at all.
No,
show up to this abandoned building.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I showed up, went to the 16th floor, doors open. It was completely empty and abandoned except for like those old metal sort of like city, like government desks and like little tables, and there were phones on the floor, and everything had those big orange stickers marked trash.
Oh my gosh.
And I was told to trash pick my office, find a corner, pick up a phone, plug it in, see if it works, and get started.
Quite literally starting from nothing. Yeah.
From nothing. And I didn't think anything of it.
Okay.
I mean, I just showed up and I said, okay, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
And I'm here to sort of learn and figure out what this job is and make my office. And all my colleagues were in the same boat. And so we just rolled up our sleeves and said, let's make it happen.
To be young and hungry is a powerful motivator.
For sure. And so this quote that my boss said, I remember being in a meeting and everything was disorganized. Like not only just a physical office, but just even starting up a program. There's a lot of chaos and no one knows what they're doing. And I think that's my first insight coming out of grad school because, I always, it was when I went to work and I was like, oh, it's okay, I don't know what I'm doing, because everybody doesn't know what they're doing.
Nobody knows what they're doing.
Nobody knows what they're doing. And so I remember being in this meeting and I stood up and I said, we really need to, get a hold on what's happening. Everything is chaotic and it's all disjointed and disoriented. And she stood up and I'll never forget, she stood up and she pointed her finger. She's like, Dana, I pay you to manage the chaos. And I said, in my head, I was just like, right.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Okay, so that was like a light switch moment for you.
It was very much so.
Okay.
And after that, it fell all into place. And I think it really spoke to, like my creative side of really looking at ideation and concepts and like sort of clean slates and figuring out what you can build. And you don't have to expect everything to be built for you.
Yeah.
And maybe if something is already built, it may not be working properly.
Okay.
Or you can think about how to improve it. So everything can be improved, and even though it feels dynamic and chaotic, it's just the process of change and iteration. And it's our jobs to sort of again manage the chaos. And how I sort of carry that forward is that I'm a very planful, proactive person, and my job as CEO now is to eliminate the noise for my employees so they can focus on what's important. So that chaos that may be around them, it's like I take that from them. Like, let's figure this is not for you to own. Let's figure that out. And so we can sort of have a clear trajectory on what you need to focus on.
Yeah.
So I just feel like chaos is part of the work, and if you expect anything, better than that, just adjust your expectations.
Wow. Such a fascinating starting story there.
Yeah.
Do you think that having that experience in your background, I'm curious, affects maybe the way you approach now being in such a strong leadership position as CEO, president there, knowing that chaos is a part of the work? Do you think that impacts the work you're doing now?
I certainly think it, I don't know if it impacts it as much as that agility that you need when change is happening, whether it's anticipated or unanticipated. Think about COVID.
Okay.
Right? And when that sort of came down the pike, you're just like, okay, we don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
It's coming at us. It's chaotic.
Yep.
how do we manage it? Day to day, you keep learning and you keep making those changes based on what you know, and it'll get you through.
Yeah.
That's sort of how I frame it. I mean, when I, also the same experience when the housing market collapsed in 2008.
Okay.
Right? Sort of another unexpected thing that happened, went crashing, and then you sort of have to react around it and be able to figure out how to work your way through it. And so I think that mentality of knowing that the best laid plans are going to fall apart probably after the first step you take. Yeah. And that's okay. You just keep adjusting and adapting those plans. And it can be frustrating, but also it can be exhilarating to be in that dynamic space and keep solving for things as you're moving through them.
Nice. Words of wisdom. Sounding so good. Okay, so with HDC and the work you're doing, it describes its mission as building hope and opportunity. I love that. You've said in the past that those words aren't just like tagline language, they're what get you out of bed in the morning. So tell me, what does hope actually look like in the work that you're doing, maybe concretely? Is there a moment you can recall in the work that sticks out to you as like, yes, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, this is what hope looks like for me, opportunities for someone coming to HDC for housing? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think hope for me, when I think about it in terms of around impact or outcomes, is going back to agency. Agency for our employees, agency for our residents. Again, creating an opportunity where people can feel like they actually have power over their lives and they can execute on what they want for themselves. And I think what that also means is that you can be the person that believes in them. HDC believes in our residents. I believe in our employees. And I believe, you may not know what you need to do or how to do something, but you should have confidence that you actually can figure it out.
Yeah.
And so that agency, I think, is really important. I think that also creating an environment where people feel welcome and seen and heard is also about hope and opportunity.
Yeah.
And so again, when you believe in somebody, they can reflect on that and dig a little deeper in themselves to do something for themselves.
Yeah, I noticed some of the language you used earlier was a community of care. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means for you, how you see that maybe in the work that you do, or just like idealistically, a community of care?
Yeah, so we talk about creating communities of care and connection, and that means that we treat our residents with dignity and respect. I mean, affordable housing is a very regulated and highly compliant industry. So there are multiple funders, investors, and requirements that you need to follow, fair housing, and it can be overwhelming. You can see it as a transaction, right? And so we really want to see the work that we do as something about transformation.
Yeah.
And
putting the human back in that work. Yeah.
That's right. Being people-centered, being resident-centered. We were talking earlier about the book Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yes.
Right. And so really,
I think we have that on our set.
There it
yes.
is.
It's been tucked in here.
Read it,
we
folks.
have it.
It's amazing.
It's
It's really about the restaurant industry, but it also applies to any industry.
Yeah.
About finding those moments of where you can connect with folks in a very real way. And that experience is basically not just about the transaction, that you were able to deliver a service, but how did that person feel in that service delivery, right? And you want to make sure they felt welcome, that they were respected, and that they were valued.
Yeah.
And that's something they're going to remember, even after that interaction. So that's what I think about in terms of creating communities of care and connection. We are very deliberate in our language. We don't refer to the residents in our housing as tenants. We refer to them as tenants. We don't refer to our apartments as units, and a lot of folks will talk about affordable housing units.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we are lining up with language around home, around community, around connection.
Oh, I love that.
And we want our residents to make connections with their neighbors so they can then create a community and find support even within themselves.
Yeah. Language has been super important, and also a topic I do want to talk about more. You've described your work in the past driven by a sense of justice and love. So talking a little bit more about this language, I feel like that's kind of an unusual thing to hear, at least from the CEO position, at least with the driving messages behind a workplace. What do you mean by leading with love? Tell us what justice and love means in practice inside of an organization.
Sure. So Brene Brown has this exercise where she asks folks, she asks folks to distill down sort of their 2 core values.
Okay.
So I went through that exercise and landed pretty quickly around justice and love. And I think love for me is really about, unconditional love and that, accepting people, who they are, where they are, and without judgment. And so I think that lends itself to a leadership role in making sure that we meet people where they are, whether they're employees or residents. In terms of justice, I've always felt this sort of draw to looking at things that may not be fair or seem unfair to me and figuring out how to correct that.
There's that political science background
in
there, yeah.
Correct, yeah. So justice is really about making sure that everyone has the same opportunities, has equal access, and when things, aren't fair, like if I really feel like, or unjust, I really feel like, what can we do about it to sort of create greater opportunity? And that sort of has driven me in everything that I do. Even from when I was a little kid to, I'm a cyclist and, I started a women's cycling club in my early 30s.
Very
it was
cool.
A racing and recreational club.
Yeah.
It was about 150 women.
Wow.
And when I started racing, there wasn't really equity in women's racing, right? Yep. And so I said, well, what do we do about this?
Yeah, super male-dominated sport.
Right,
yeah.
And so I found out the governing board. I advocated to make sure there's a seat for a woman on the board, and then we began to change policies to make sure there was equity in pay and races.
Okay.
So like all those things,
yeah.
like I just keep
in all areas of your life, you're hitting it.
I'm hitting it. Yep.
I love that. Oh my gosh. So maybe in terms of inspirational language here or words of wisdom nuggets we can take with us, what would you say to somebody who thinks that emotion or these values of justice and love has no place in organizational leadership? Someone who thinks just about the bottom line, productivity, results, things like that.
Well, I don't think that they're a leader, they're a manager.
Tell me more about that.
Well, there's a difference, right? Leadership means that you have to sort of own the responsibility around people, right? At the end of the day, organizations and companies are made up of humans.
Yeah.
And if you just view them only as workers, then I think you're doing an injustice, right? Because whether we want to realize it or not, we bring our full selves to the work, and that means all the imaginary baggage that you may be rolling in with you, and we have to recognize that, that we bring that to the workspace and understand like what motivates people, how they want to receive feedback. You can't be robotic. You can't only look at KPIs and the bottom line. I mean, make no mistake, we at HDC, we are very much focused on the business side. We have to be, right? So we have a very regimented sort of annual scorecard.
Right.
We have our KPIs for our strategic plan. But at the end of the day, what gets the work done are the people that, are working for you. And so being able to be supportive, be flexible to understand like what else is going on in their lives that may be affecting work or what other supports they may need so they can bring their best work self.
Yeah.
I don't expect people to bring their authentic selves to work because there is an element of saying you can't just be exactly who you are.
Sure, but
right?
I think there is this misconception that you can't be professional and serious and also emotional or sympathetic or aware of these things.
Well, I think that's interesting because I would say some feedback I get a lot is like people are like, Dana, I love your passion, and so that's a positive thing when passion is positive, right? But when you get frustrated, it's like, oh, you know what? We just need you to sort of
all right, dial it back a bit, reel it in.
I'm like, so I think it's interesting because that is the passion and the purpose is what's going to get you through like the really hard parts of the work, and to think that you should compartmentalize that out. Yeah, it's just gonna feel flat, in my opinion.
It's changing the way I think about my own frustration, like towards projects and deadlines and things. Maybe it is just misplaced passion or passion that needs a different kind of outlet.
Yeah, and I think, I think a lot about sort of like the being frustrated, like when you're frustrated at work, and oftentimes when I'm frustrated at work, it's because I'm learning. And the act of learning is frustrating because you're like, you want to get it like immediately so you can move on. Yeah. And so I think oftentimes we just can get frustrated about sort of maybe a process isn't working right or a relationship isn't working right. But sort of just stay in that space and sort of just push through it and persevere. Yeah. And then you come out on the other side, you're like, oh, so much better now. Because you went through that learning process or the conflict resolution process, and sort of have more wisdom because of it.
Nice. So we talked about what you get up in the morning for every day. On the flip side of that, I do have a quote here of something that keeps you up at night. It's making sure that you're not letting people down who count on you. I think this is a really important thing to touch on because of your role as a leader. How do you carry that weight of wanting everything to go your way, maybe not facing that frustration, not wanting to let people down? How does it not consume you thinking about that?
Well, thanks, Madison.
I'm here to ask the hard-hitting questions.
No, I would say, after 8 years of being in the seat of HDC, I've become more comfortable with the risk of leadership in terms of how to manage risk and how to make sure that you are delivering on what you say you are going to deliver on.
Yeah.
And also making sure that you are taking risks that are about ensuring the stability and sustainability of the organization. And this sort of volatile environment, it's hard.
Sure.
Because sometimes you just don't know what's coming at you.
Yeah.
But the responsibility, I think, of knowing for your employees that this is their livelihood, their mortgage, their kids' college education.
There's a lot at stake.
There's a lot at stake for them, and I take that responsibility very seriously. And in fact, I would say if I looked at all of my career choices, I never started out thinking I wanted to be a CEO. For that core reason of I didn't know if I could carry that weight and responsibility.
Sure.
But there was a moment, I would say 8 years ago, 9 years ago, where I thought, if I really want to see the kind of change I want in the world, but also the kind of change or the kind of workplace I want to work in, that I have to lead it myself.
Yeah.
That I can't be second in command, because honestly, I was sort of just done of having my hand up other people's back, telling them what to do, and I realized, wait, I'm already doing this.
Yeah.
And so that felt like a really big leap to be to go for it. And I started to put those words in the universe of saying, this is what I want. And, I think when I didn't expect to leave Philadelphia and move to Lancaster to lead HDC, this opportunity came about, and I actually was thinking about it for other people that I knew. And then as I considered it, I said, well, why don't I start exploring it myself? And through that exercise, realized that, this is the exact fit and the exact place that I need to be, of a culmination of all of my work experience, but also an opportunity for me to really transform an organization and their culture, again, to be resident-centered, people-centered, focused on equity and collaboration and being welcoming, and really saying you can run an organization and you could be sustainable and have a great impact, but you can still hold those values true within your organization. It's really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, HDC is 150 employees, and we have our employees across all of our communities. So what keeps me up at night now is wondering if our culture that is felt in our home office and the values and the way that we lead there is felt in communities across our 3-state footprint, where there may only be 2 or 3 employees, right? And what does that feel like? Or the hierarchy of the executive leadership to operational leadership to the managers to
the ripples of your
the
leadership.
Ripples, right? Exactly. And saying, does that get diffused?
That's interesting.
And so that's what keeps me up at night, because I want everyone to experience HDC where they feel supported, that they have the tools and resources they need to succeed, and that we offer the flexibility to manage their lives in that as they're working for HDC.
Man, those values. Brene Brown strikes again.
Yep.
Amazing. I think I've had actually no guests now say that they always envisioned themselves in the career that they landed in now. I think I'm at a 0 point with guests now. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think for me, it was in every choice I made in terms of the next role that I took, it was always thinking about what feels right for me right now. Like for me, I always believe in following your heart first.
I was going to say, is that a gut feeling that you follow? Or
it is following your heart, checking with your head.
Okay.
And then I would say using your head and then checking with your gut.
Okay.
Right. And if it feels right for that time, you should step into it and learn learn from it. And when you start to feel restless or thinking about what else is for me here, and maybe there's not an opportunity to grow, but then that's sort of the next move in which I think you used to say, like, okay, maybe I need to move on and learn something else.
Yeah.
And so I think I can look backwards and tell that story, but when I was in it, I had no freaking clue.
Feels very different. Yeah.
Yeah.
You need the signatures, heart, gut, brain. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so one of the things for our podcast that we love to do is to add in the perspective for our scholars. We have a lot of students in and out through our doors through the years, our staff as well. A lot of people look at affordable housing and feel like the problem is maybe too big to touch. And this is true for a lot of the guests we have on the podcast. They deal with very, very big social issues or very big projects that an outsider looking in might feel like, whoa, this is too much for me. Like, how can I as one person make a difference in this space? So what would you say perhaps to a young person who is thinking about all of these big issues and wants to give their time, wants to help, but has no idea where to start for their contributions?
That's a great question. I think for me, I would like to say to folks, if you think something's too big to tackle, that's probably why we still have the problem.
Ooh, okay.
So I would like folks to be bold and brave and step in, even though it may seem overwhelming. I mean, I have a quote in my office that says, impossible is just an opinion. And so, I have spent my life in affordable housing, and I will say it feels like a game of whack-a-mole. You sort of build housing here, and then all of a sudden another pothole comes up where you have to patch that up, build some more housing. It's just over and over again. So how are you creating systems change? I think is the bigger question.
Systems change.
Yeah. And that is like the long game of this work, and that's why advocacy is needed to say, how do we change the systems in terms of how we create affordable housing, or how the conditions of housing supply or lack of housing supply exists. Those are sort of, that can feel overwhelming, but immediately, there's always something that we can do.
Yeah.
Right? Even as a volunteer, it could be knowing that, housing's being built in your community and the developer is going to be presenting at the Planning Commission, right? Just show up and say, I think this is important and this is why. We have a lot of folks who show up and tell us why it shouldn't happen.
Okay.
We have not a lot of folks who show up who say why they believe it should happen. And because that creates discomfort.
Yeah.
Right? So I think a lot of times, people and it creates a level of vulnerability that folks may not be willing to take.
Yeah.
But I think as a student coming in, it's like, where can you start where you can feel like you can affect change?
Yeah.
And I would say that in every moment. So you think about, whether you're starting out as for us as a community manager or community relations. At the end of the day, when you're doing this work and you're just like, I don't see the tangible outcome. But for housing, what was really important for me when I sort of chose to sort of focus on it is that there is a tangible outcome on the work. You get to see that house in physical form being built after 4 years of pain and suffering and millions of dollars that you've had to put together to make that actually happen. And so it's very tangible and very real. And then you get to see the residents who, you hand the keys over and what that means to them on that day.
Yeah.
And their lives are changed forever.
Yeah, that's a tangible win.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I would say if you're interested in affordable housing, to connect with an organization who focuses on it and just to start learning it and persevere. It is a very, very complicated industry. Yeah. And it takes time to learn it. And I think that you need to have the patience to sort of be in it and learn it. And we are really looking for sort of that emerging talent to come up and invest in them.
Okay.
Because this issue is not going away.
Yeah.
And the industry's become more and more sophisticated. So it's like we almost want people to be ready-made to step in and do it.
Okay.
But at HDC, we are hiring folks straight out of college and saying, do you want to learn this? Because we will help you learn this. You will help our organization.
Sure.
And you will also be able to build a very meaningful and impactful career from that.
And affordable housing, much like many other industries, is not one of those neatly boxed up careers that is catered to high school students or even younger, of saying you can do this when you grow up. It's more complicated, it's intricate, and I think that that's so wonderful that you're pursuing young talent, people who are eager to help change. I think that that's a really strong point to capitalize on. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. Going big scope. So looking back across 30 years of this work, is there a moment that maybe subtly changed your direction or solidified, I know that I'm doing the work that I know I should be doing? Something that solidified your call to action to know that you're in the right spot? Is there a moment for you that sticks out? Which I know it's a big scope.
Well, I think for me, when I moved to Philadelphia to go to grad school at Temple,
sure.
I knew that that's where I needed to be, and it felt right.
We checked with gut, we checked with heart, we checked with brain.
All of it just sort of fell into place. I wasn't sure exactly what I would be doing after grad school, but it fit. And I have never really faltered on my commitment. Once I sort of identified affordable housing as the skill set that I wanted to master and wanted to, have a career in, and without a doubt. I mean, I know that's unusual. But 30 years always doing this work, and I've never felt like I should be doing something different.
Unusual perhaps, but powerful. I mean, having that strong foundation maybe makes your convictions easier to follow.
Well, and also the culmination of all that experience. I mean, you stay 30 years in an industry and you have sort of a proclivity to sort of connect and lead people.
Yeah.
It can...
You've got all the right ingredients.
Yeah, it can work for you.
Yeah.
Like I said, I never thought I was going to be a CEO, but here I am.
Said almost every CEO.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's been very fulfilling,
Sure.
and again, unanticipated.
Wonderful. Well, this is the point in our podcast where we usually open up to some audience questions. We have some people who might be eager to pick your brain. I think we have time for at least a couple. So let's make sure we get some microphones circulating out. And then I'll end with a few fun little closers.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for letting me use your space for pre-law. Very much appreciate that one.
Attollo HDC collaboration.
Truly, literally. So I guess my question is based off of the fact that you said, like, especially for you now, what keeps you up at night is trying to keep away the chaos and not letting people down. And when it seems like your workplace, like, you're the person that takes the chaos so the others can do their jobs, and even it seems like in somewhat of your personal, like the bike club, like you are actually doing it for other people as well. So I guess my question to that is, what's like the self-caring aspect? Is it hard to find that balance of constantly trying to do it for everyone that you forget about yourself? Like, have you had any struggles with that, or have you have any tips on how you do that simultaneously in terms of self-love, but then also making sure not only your personal circle, but your work circle and the people you're helping with feel that stress is taken off them as well?
That's a great question. I think one thing I have struggled with and I've recognized is that the identity of a CEO can be all-consuming. And sometimes I would say, especially in Lancaster, where it's a very small community, right? So your professional, social life often sort of overlap, and that identity never gets sort of shed. And so I think that's sometimes I wish I could just be seen as Dana, not, this is Dana Hanchin. She's the president and CEO of HDC MidAtlantic. I really wish I could go to some social engagement and say, this is Dana Hanchin. Great. Don't ask me what I do, please, because I don't really want to focus on that right now. Like, that's the separation of just feeling like I can just be myself without having that identity. But I think in 8 years of doing this work and how hard it's been, I mean, 2018 I started, 18 months later COVID hit, and so I don't know what a normal leadership looks like in a nonprofit organization. And so that the energy and the consumption to make sure that, we kept our residents safe, our employees and our organization, to survive, was, you had to be all in. And so I think right now in my 8-year tenure, I'm doing better at understanding how to make sure I'm taking care of these other facets that I let fall away. And I've always ridden the bike. I will tell you that is like mental health for me. And one of the great things about Lancaster County, we have these beautiful country farm roads around. And so I'm on my bike 6 days a week, for sure. There are other facets of sort of my personality that I'm and sort of my talent that I'm trying to bring back to remind myself, like, oh, is not just my job, right? And so like I talked about earlier about like being in high school and being an art punk. So like I'm picking up oil pastels and I'm, thinking, just trying to like do things that remind myself of facets of me that are no longer sort of uber present, but help me realize that I'm just not this one thing, I think is how I think about self-love. So I'm working on it. Leo, are you working on it?
Most days.
You're being put on blast.
No, you're absolutely right. But not to switch topics, and definitely, I mean, we've had some conversations, and you talked about some self-care stuff, and it's spot on. I love that you have that for you. I'm actually very curious, though, about just the status of affordable housing in Lancaster. From Dana's perspective, like, where do you think we're going? What do you think Lancaster needs? And how could other people be a part of that?
Well, it's complicated.
The insider scoop.
Right. I mean, so, in Lancaster County, HDC has 25 affordable housing communities already operating. And so I think that comes out to about 1,200 apartments. We have another 400 in the county that we have in our pipeline, whether it's new construction or preservation, because you need to reinvest in the existing affordable housing to continue its affordability and ensure that those properties are operating at the sort of standards of excellence that we strive for. The reason why, I would say in terms of HDC as a nonprofit and the resources that we use to build affordable housing, you need subsidy. And the reason why there isn't enough affordable housing in Lancaster County is because it's not profitable, right? And so this is capitalism, right? And so you're driven by profit. And so developers can't figure out how to, build, 50 units or 100 units that, are less than $1,000, in rent. You need that subsidy in order to make that happen. So it doesn't pencil out right now. And so I think that's the real challenge, is that we don't have the private market fully engaged in being able to create that affordable housing, because it doesn't make sense from, from a pro forma perspective, right? So you need additional resources to make that happen, additional resources that currently, are uncertain in terms of whether or not you'll have the sort of subsidy to fill to be able to make those, to put those apartments in service or complete those projects. So, and it takes a really long time. So from concept to completion, like I said, 5 years. 5 years to create 64 units on College Avenue. And we talked about 100 people calling us a day needing affordable housing. It takes 5 years to build 64 apartments. And it's too slow. So I think in terms of a systems issue, which is not unique to Lancaster County, it is really across the country, because the only resource we have to build affordable housing is a national tool called the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program, which really is an indirect federal subsidy to incentivize the private market to participate in building affordable housing. And that's actually administered by the IRS, right? It's a tax credit, and those tax credits get awarded to states, and then we apply to compete for them. So sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. Could take longer to get those credits, and then we sell them to investors. So there is a market, there's a private market component of doing this, and the market responds on whether or not how much you get for cents on the dollar. So those credits are $1, and depending upon the marketplace, you can get anywhere from 87 cents on a dollar to, when the market was like really crazy, like $1.10. But every penny represents $100,000 in your capital stack. So if you just think about it, and that credit funds about 75% of the development. So if you have a $20 million project, you have to go out and raise $5 million. Where are we going to get that $5 million from? The city of Lancaster, their home dollars from HUD is roughly around, I think, $400,000 a year, right? And this is one project. College Ave was a $23 million project. And we had, I think, over 15 sources in our capital stack. And so it's very complicated to sort of execute on. It takes a long time. It is inefficient. It's not perfect. And there are all kinds of ways we need to change it. But at the end of the day, the resource is the question, right? If we had more resources, we would be able to execute on this. If construction costs were down, then maybe we'd be able to create more units. If regulations were minimized, that would also incentivize more affordable housing. So it's complicated to sort of say what else can be done or what is the situation. Again, private market dictates what's profitable, right? And so it's not profitable, so affordable housing doesn't get built. So you have to figure out how to make that happen, and the only way you can do that is through subsidy and grant resources. Incomes are what they are, right? I mean, the average income for the families at HDC is roughly $30,000 a year. That's $15 an hour. That's almost double the minimum wage at the state. It's not livable. And so you have this problem where incomes are low, rents are set, rents are set based upon the incomes, and it's just an equation that doesn't sort of math out.
Wonderful.
We have so many follow-up questions.
That's really...
We have an adverse relationship to the economic boom that's happening in Lancaster, which I think we've all felt. It does have an adverse relationship to affordable housing. And how do we slow that down? Do we pour more money into it? What is that reality as well?
Well, for me, I think it's about the supply, and we don't have enough affordable housing apartments available in the city. And I think on the private market, in terms of market rate units, we have an abundance of buildings that are looking to be, they're actively leasing up. And so I think for those developers, owner-operators, they are seeing sort of sluggish rates around lease-up, because it's showing that folks don't have the incomes in order to support an $1,800 a month rent or $2,400 a month rent. The development across the street from College Avenue is a market rate development, and I think that's the range between $1,800 and $2,000 plus for an apartment. Is that able to serve folks who are coming right out of college and working their first job, unless they're going to have like 5 people in their bedroom? I mean, it's...
Definitely haven't checked Zillow recently to confirm those numbers, but you might be very close.
Yeah.
One last thing. What's your favorite bike/walking trail in Lancaster? I can't ride a bike.
Important questions.
So I don't normally ride on trails. I ride on the road. And I ride everywhere in the county. And one of the things that I love about riding my bike in Lancaster County is that every route that I do, whether I'm riding up to Mount Gretna in Lebanon County, or I am going to Chester County or York County or whatever, Hershey, I'm always on a route that I say, this is one of my favorite roads. And so I never get tired of the beautiful roads. It's unparalleled, I think. I haven't ridden everywhere in the country, but I will claim that Lancaster County has some of the best cycling in the country.
Celebrate Lancaster.
Celebrate Lancaster.
Hey-o.
Coming up tomorrow.
Yep.
Hey. All right. Well, our time unfortunately does have to come to a close at some point. But before we go, I'd love to ask you some more fun questions to kind of continue the levity. So outside of your work, you ride your bike, we heard. You mix what you describe as amazing cocktails. And you take long walks with your wife and rescue pups Ellie and Gabe. So what is
I
it?
have 2 more on top of Ellie and Gabe.
Tell me about them.
We just inherited my mother-in-law's dogs. 4.5-pound toy poodle named Ginger.
Aww.
She looks like a bat/bird/vampire.
Okay.
She's like 20 years old.
Yeah.
Has no teeth,
Shaky,
one eye.
yeah.
All
Little
that.
blind,
And then
yeah.
a 20-pound turkey ball named Henry. He's I don't know what he is. We call him Henri because we think he's a Bichon.
Oh, so he's French.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. All right, so tell us, what does a day off from work actually look like for you? You have very many amazing hobbies. You're a very creative, punk kind of person. Tell us what maybe your ideal day off would look like.
My ideal day off, I don't think I've ever been able to achieve.
Okay, so goals for the future.
Goals for the future. My ideal day off is actually to ride my bike for about 3 hours, 4 hours, and then spend the other half of the day at the beach. And that's a pretty long drive to get there. But mainly what I do on my day off is always ride my bike every, Saturday, Sunday. My mom lives nearby, so she's about 5 miles away, and I usually connect with her. Other than that, I'm doing chores at home to Chapel Roan.
I love that. Oh, speaking of Chapel Roan, I personally love a great dance party. Rumor has it that you also love a great dance party. I think that'd be a great way to end our time together.
Should we have a 30-second dance party?
I mean, I think you're prepared. I think we should do it.
Should we hit the button?
Let's do it. Hit the button.
30-second dance party.